Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, rather had fun. Before we get into it, and before Zane walks in front of the camera here, we're giving away free Selkirk paddles for life. So we'll have one winner of free paddles for life. You'll never have to buy another paddle again, Selkirk paddles. And then 5 winners of a single Selkirk paddle. You can choose between 2, but we'll include the link down below, and you can enter to win free paddles for life. Never buy another paddle again. Do it. All right. Well, okay. Welcome back. I started recording because we were having a good conversation. We should have it while we're recording. We've got Brooks Wiley here, Major League Pickleball Commissioner, and is there another position title? Yeah. That's good. We were going to have another one of the MLP team members here to talk paddle tech, paddle testing, the new system. We said, listen, we've had enough of that conversation, so we'll talk about that a little bit. But let's get to the stuff that's really important. We want to know, who is Odoth?
I had somebody tell me that they think it is pro pickleball player Neil Medarata.
Uh-huh. You're going to call Neil Medarata a pro pickleball player?
Yes.
Neil's one of my buddies from back home. I can attest to the fact that it is not Neil.
Okay. I thought you were about to say is.
Although I don't think... See, here's the thing. Neil doesn't hide his trolling. Neil will just straight up troll under the name Neil Medarata.
That's right.
He is not afraid.
True.
He doesn't need a pseudonym or somebody to hide behind. Odoth, I don't know what Odoth is hiding, but I have met Odoth before, and I got my Koopy Nation shirt from Odoth.
You met the real Odoth in person?
Where?
I have intel. Where? Here and there. Here and there. How about, Brooks, on this podcast, how about you give us some real good dirt? You know, whatever gossip, whatever tea. We'll do a little quid pro quo here. I'll give you dirt, you give me dirt, you start.
I have no dirt. All my dirt could get people in trouble, so I'm not.
That's the best type. That's the best type. Oh, boy. So, anyway.
Maurice the Grease lives in Austin. We know is that dirt?
This is true.
Yeah,
Maurice the Grease.
We know that. We might have him on. We're still vetting him out. So Maurice, we'll be in touch.
I feel special that I got invited before me, Maurice the Grease.
Yeah. But Brooks, you're pretty generally in the know. I mean, you. I think you're in the Discords. You're on Twitter. You listen to the podcast. You understand better than most sort of the full comprehensive pickleball landscape. And what's disappointing to me is the bigger Major League Pickleball gets and the higher you elevate within that organization, the less you can hang out with us degenerates down here on this level where we talk about who's Odoth, is Neil Medarata, the hiding behind is who's Hey Shay and all that good stuff. So,
but he's here now, so let's enjoy
Anytime you
it.
invite me to play pickleball, I'm there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You are good about that. But okay. What should we start with? I feel like
let's start on a serious note.
Okay.
What's your meme of the week?
Brooks?
Hey Shay wants to be a pro.
I saw that. She just tweeted that, or he just tweeted that. Is it a he or a she?
It's a she.
I thought it was a she.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought she is a she.
Okay.
I called Hey Shay he one time, and Hey Shay corrected me.
Got it.
But we don't know Hey Shay's identity. So
no, we don't.
We do not. I just assumed that every internet troll is a male.
Yeah, me too.
And she gets mad when I call her a troll. I'm just going to say anonymous account with funny content, somewhat trolly. Somewhat.
If you're anon, in my mind, you're kind of a troll.
Yeah, that's the only reason. That's the main reason.
Right.
But Odoth had a good meme. Odoth's a very polarizing figure. I liked his state-of-the-art paddle testing from APP, where there was a clip of a referee just banging on a paddle. I think it was shaking it, banging on it. You're good.
Well, that replaces the old stickiness test.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, my favorite was when they would ask me if my paddle is USA Pickleball approved. And I would always say yes. and it's been blessed by the Dalai Lama. And they didn't like that. No, none of the referees ever thought that was funny. But there was a period of time where USA Pickleball approved. I mean, you might as well just go on eBay and buy some stickers and slap it on the paddle. So I was kind of making fun of that, but I don't think anybody got it or appreciated it.
I think when I played in the Pickleball Slam with Cameron, they asked, we were doing the whole ref thing at the beginning of the match, and then the ref said, "Is it confirmed?" And I was like, had a dumb look on my face. I'm like, what are you talking about? Or like approved, or she said, is it approved? It's the same thing. And I had no context of what, I had never had anybody ask that. So I was like, yeah, it was super awkward. They're like, is it USA Pickleball? I'm like, it says it right there on the, yeah.
It's written. It is written.
Okay, my favorite meme of the week is one of our own. We brought it back. By the way, our old Instagram is back, so we're back to full strength. But now we have a great secondary account. But we were recycling a lot of content, and there's one where Stephen A. Smith with sad music playing finds out that we're going to be playing on temp nets today.
Oh yeah.
But all right, now that we've covered meme of the week, so before we get into kind of like our list of stuff, I just want to touch on kind of the paddle testing processes and maybe some of the recent developments on that front before we move into the rest of it, because I think, you're kind of doing this podcast tour, if you will.
Yeah.
So maybe I can just like turn it over to you and say, what are kind of the general updates that you've been offering? A lot's been changing lately.
Yeah, I think the main thing was that we started hearing from players, really loudly in February and March, like after Mesa, getting louder and louder, some controversies coming up here and there. And so I decided we have to do something before Daytona. Mm-hmm. We discussed internally, got with PicklePod Labs, our third-party partner that has experience in doing baseball testing for the last 20, 30 years, golf, some other sports. So we got with them and came up with a process for Daytona, which was, we're going to test every paddle. We want to start collecting data. That was the number one thing, is find out what the problem is.
Right.
Is it 6 paddles? Is it 20 paddles? Is it 100 paddles? Mm-hmm. And we didn't know that information. And so that was the number one thing, was Daytona set up the equipment, do anonymous testing, to allow for plausible deniability for both players and manufacturers. Just that, let's just figure out what the problem is. That was the number one thing
right.
And then begin to set what we think are the standards and guidelines. And then also what are the process, what is the testing process going forward? Learn from what we did there, and then continue to iterate from there. The next step, but the next step is dynamic testing. So these guys are working on a lab in Chicago where they're, literally going to fire a pickleball out of a cannon at pickleball paddles and start to really try and emulate what the ball speed is essentially what you care about, right? What is the speed coming off the paddle? So that's the next step.
Got it.
And it was, so when we submitted our paddles for testing in Daytona, it was the traditional method of testing for basically deflection or whatever you want to call it. It was where it's
a static test. Yeah.
Where you push into the face of the paddle, and you're going to change it to the ballistics. How's that going to work? Do you have any idea or any hypothesis on how that's going to work on site? Right now that's going to Chicago. Yeah. How do we implement that at San Clemente? So
the first thing was do the static test in Daytona. The engineers think that there's a really high, they're comfortable with the correlation between the static test that they did in Daytona and what the real world, ball speed will be. But the second part will be do the dynamic testing and then correlate that back to the standard testing. The static test. So obviously you can't take a cannon and the expense and all that stuff to an event. So we will leave it up to the engineers to be comfortable with through the scientific process, to be based on this dynamic testing and what we learn in dynamic testing, set up the parameters of the static test. And that's how much load you put, basically what the depth of the load is. I think they basically put it in a vise. Mm-hmm. You can decide, do we put it an 1/8 of an inch or 5/8 of an inch or whatever. thousandths of an inch, and then how much force does it require to like rebound. So we will leave it up to the engineers, the experts, to figure out like what, based on the dynamic testing, what static test correlates well enough that you feel comfortable that like if a paddle fails whatever standard we set, it should be taken out of play.
It's a set of characteristics that can actually be tested on site, but can be then correlated back to a certain set of standards that were established by lab testing.
Exactly. And like, which is, and the purpose of the lab testing is to simulate like a professional player or a player hitting the ball as opposed to just, you know, something being.
So I guess when I assume when I hear lab testing, all I think about is the big drill for like deflection, right? But it sounds like there's a lot more that's going into it now.
Yeah. Or you can fire balls at the paddle at different speeds and determine.
Side note, we should get in this lab and just like see how fast our reflexes are and just keep amplifying the speed and like do like chicken or something. That sounds like
I think that would Dude Perfect video.
Yeah.
I thought your suggestion was going to be we should just fire balls at you.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see what Thomas's deflection is.
I'm up for that. My juvenile brain is like envisioning this fantasy factory when you talk about the lab right now. But sorry.
So you're developing your own set of standards and doing your own thing for the purposes of Major League Pickleball. Like, was there any thought of, you know, managing a relationship with USA Pickleball, as this has been their domain and PPA is still somewhat relying on the USA Pickleball standards and whatnot? You're going off, the way I understand it, you're setting your own course.
Yeah, I mean, the methods that we're coming up with, we feel like we're just trying to do the right thing. And we've got guys that have been doing this testing for a long time, and they feel like the standards or these test methods are the best. And this is a decision that USA or Major League Pickleball has made. But we still, like, I have a meeting. I'm supposed to be setting a meeting with Carl today or tomorrow, and we're still working with USA Pickleball and PPA. And like, we ultimately, all of us want to do the right thing. And I think a uniform set of standards by far for the sport of pickleball and for the professional players is ultimately the goal. And like, that's the best thing for the sport. And that's what we want.
Is there ever going to be a point where you just go, you know what, like, this is on the paddle manufacturers? Or is there going to be a point, let's just take the example of, you know, Ansbury's paddle in a single day going from illegal to legal. That to me seems like a paddle manufacturing issue, right? It's an equipment issue. Is there a world where we can actually get to a point where there's accurate enough testing to fix for something like that? Or eventually, is there going to be at least one point where you say, to a degree, hey, paddle manufacturers, you gotta fix your shit. Like, this is all over the place. It's inconsistent. Like, we can't have this.
Yeah, I think baseball and softball, the way that they do the manufacturing standards is, if it starts to go past the standard, there's visible cracking or peeling or whatever, something like that. And I think that would be the ultimate goal, is to get the standards such that a paddle has to be made to where the problem is not happening underneath, that you can't see it, right? And I had a conversation with our engineer this morning talking about, like, I think possibly even paddles without cores might be a thing in the future.
Right.
To where then again, like, you can see if it starts to degrade to a point at which it's increasing performance past whatever the guideline is, you can see it visibly. I think that would be the ultimate goal in the future. But also, like, we have, you know, PicklePod Labs, they did this testing anonymously. Like, I don't know the results of whose paddle failed what manufacturer when we did it at Daytona, but PicklePod Labs contacted all, I think, 5 or 6 of the players whose paddles fell outside of what we think will be our guidelines, and also the manufacturers directly. And they've said that, like, by all of them across the board, like, they want to do the right thing. They want to learn about this. Like, I don't think anybody's trying to, like, manufacture a paddle nefariously. So like, it's just like, I think it's an accidental byproduct of, like, what people saw as an advantage like the thermoforming, which is like a foam exterior around the inside of the base of the paddle, which makes it more stable. And so people thought, well, this is an advantage. And then something accidentally happened where like the second or third order consequence of this was, oh, this trampoline effect or the delamination is happening.
Right.
But yeah, to answer your question, I think there might be some changes in manufacturing guidelines down the line. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's a ways down the line, but
right.
I think everybody wants to do the right thing.
But you still generally work off of that, USAP approved little stamp, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of that's the initial threshold.
Yes.
But if you guys get to a point down the road where you've established a certain set of standards and expectations, you might go to a MLP approved type of system, or you're going to say, hey, USAP, we've got the best system here. You need to adopt this.
Yeah, I mean, we want to work with everybody to do the right thing.
Yeah. Good. That's good. Good, concise political answer there. I like that one. That was good.
So what needs to happen for us to finally move past paddles in our podcast?
I think one of the owners, our friend Tim Parks, texted me this morning, and he said hopefully in a couple months. I think that might be sort of reasonable.
Yeah.
I think we can get to a point at which, again, there's like a clear, transparent guideline, and the players sort of know like this is it, and you take the paddles out of play if they fail that before the match.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I think by the end of this year, I think was realistic.
Okay. Solid.
But all we can do is like improve for the next event and improve for the next one and the next one, and as we learn more, like just get better.
Mm-hmm. You guys could, try my idea. Just let us do whatever the hell we want, and then make an MLP ball.
Yeah, we are working on an MLP ball.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. What's that going to be like?
Doing the dynamic testing to figure it out.
Doing the dynamic testing. You won't get
I think we ordered, there's the hardness measurement, and I think the USA Pickleball measurement is 50 on a durometer, which is like this, basically just push this machine into the ball, and then again, like how much pressure it takes to rebound it or push it back to a certain degree. I think 50 on the durometer is the measurement, and I think we ordered balls that are we ordered balls in different colors, so like green and yellow, and like 52, 50, or 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, all in both colors, because color affects the die, affects the performance of the ball. And then we're going to do testing, get player feedback, and to determine what we think is the sweet spot for a ball. But
do you think, I personally think that the ball technology is holding back professional play somewhat considerably, because when you hit a different part of the ball reacts differently off of your paddle, depending on how close you hit it to a hole. Right. So you could, or what part
or
of
the marking on the ball.
Yeah. Or what part of the ball you hit changes how the ball comes off of your paddle. And I think that'll be an upper barrier on. Right now, you hit the ball the same exact way twice, and you'll have two different outcomes. Right. That doesn't happen in tennis. It doesn't happen in basketball. It doesn't happen in any of these other sports, to my knowledge. Right. The variability of the ball, I think, makes it tough to be really, really precise with your shots. Is there anything that, like, any theories or anything out there that you think could make this ball more consistent? I mean, one thing that I thought about is just like having different size holes, I think made some sense at one point, but like, I don't know. I
different size holes from ball to ball.
Well,
You're
from
saying.
all
On the same
ball,
ball, on
but
the
there's
same
also
ball.
on the same ball. They're spaced out differently.
Yeah.
Like, could you make a wiffle ball slow enough that doesn't have a hole? Like,
Yeah, I think we're going to do testing, and I think we'll learn a lot from that testing. And we are working on some things to develop stuff that I can't talk about that we think like will improve it.
Well, I think we see a path to getting away from the paddle conversation and blame it on the balls.
It is the common denominator, and it is something that you can not manipulate, but make the standards of the ball such that maybe the paddles, maybe you allow for a higher paddle because the ball is softer.
Right.
Like it is the common denominator. So it's something to look at for sure.
yeah, the ball is in the control of the referee and MLP.
Yeah.
The paddle, who knows?
The paddles,
what happens with
the chain of custody of the ball is very different than the paddle.
Gotcha.
Okay.
What other exciting, fun stuff do we have coming from MLP outside of the riveting topic of paddles?
Paddle testing. Yeah, just like getting ready for San Clemente, testing out some different VAR systems that I think we're going to test at minor league pickleball in Salt Lake City in late May, like around the 25th of May. So yeah, just trying to increase the production value on the court, as you've been aware, like trying to make sure that courts, if you happen to play on court 3 and 4, as opposed to the grandstand or the championship court, that there's replays there and they're accurate enough, and to just continue to increase the broadcast quality and the competition quality on all of those courts, because we're playing more and more on, outer courts as opposed to just grandstand and championship court. Gotcha. With 24 teams.
In San Clemente, are you going to use, how there's like the natural stadium, like the tennis stadium? Are you going to build, like, how's the championship court going to be situated? Is there just going to be one inside that stadium, or are you going to do the one and then the two on the other end, like the PPA has done in the past? And then are you going to build up stands around kind of whichever the championship court is?
I think we're still working on that, but I think the current setup, and we are working closely with the PPA on this, because they're like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we load in Monday, and then our event starts 3 days later. So we're working closely with them to coordinate what that championship court looks like, and it will be one championship court on that that tennis stadium, and then probably like some VIP stands on the ends. And then just the natural seating in the middle. Yeah. And then our grandstand courts will be on that next pod, the next pod down that, just on the other side of the hill.
Right.
I've actually never been to this venue.
It's one of the really good, one of the coolest.
Beautiful. Yeah. There's like, I was there for a site visit like a month ago, and there's, I don't know what kind of flowers, but there's like mustard colored flowers blooming on the hills, and
gotta love a good mustard flower.
It's just incredibly beautiful. There's like these little hills that are right there, and then the oceans in the background is, when the marine layer burns off in the late morning, and you can see the ocean. Like you can see downtown San Clemente a little bit. I think it's just,
Yeah. One of the things I read is that Lifetime specifically is actually, so that they have that tennis stadium, they're converting that full time to pickleball. So they're like, see you later, tennis.
I heard that. I heard somebody discussing that they were, that they were thinking about that.
I read the email. The Lifetime sent out like a thoughtful letter to its members, because they knew there was going to be an uproar, and there already was backlash from tennis players, that they were like, nope, we're a pickleball club now. But it's kind of what's happening everywhere.
How many courts are they putting on that championship?
I would assume 3.
3 or 4 maybe.
Yeah, I would assume 3 probably.
Yeah, like similar to the PPA when they do the 1, 2, 3, like 1 on one side and then 2 and interesting. Yeah, when we did the site visit, we were walking around the stadium, and I was on the phone with one of my colleagues, and they were having a women's league match. And this is like Tuesday morning at 9:30 or something like that, and I was getting shushed. Like, I was on the phone at the top, on the top level of that stadium, on the phone, like not yelling, not just having a cat, like we're talking here. And the women on the stadium court like shushed me. So I walked.
Were they tennis or pickleball
players?
Tennis.
It was a tennis.
That makes a little more sense.
It was a tennis match. And then, so I walked away from the stadium towards the other pod down behind the pool, and was like standing up there, and a woman probably 50 yards away was like, go away.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
Yikes.
Were they in all whites? That's the real question.
They were not.
Yeah.
But they were also like, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, the other women that were sitting there watching the match, they're like, what are you doing? We're like, we have a pickleball event coming. Yeah. And they're like, oh, you're that with that one company. And we're like, no, they're here, and then we're coming. They're like, so they're like, we're losing our facility for 2 weeks. And I said, I guess.
Sorry. Yikes. We'll get them on the podcast next week. Tell their side.
All right. So let's talk about in Daytona. We had our first, it was the orange card. We had our first orange card, right?
Blue card.
It was a blue card, and that's the technical warning.
Brooks, what the hell are the orange cards and blue cards? I cannot keep orange and blue straight. Just red card of somebody.
I mean, we wanted to do yellow card. I mean, it's yellow card, red card, right? It's
Right.
Everybody knows that, or most people know that from soccer. We wanted to use the MLP branded colors, so we went blue, orange.
Yeah.
So orange is worse.
Orange is worse. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Orange is the point deduction, essentially,
Yes, exactly.
if you have a point.
Yeah. So Pablo was we had a couple of people trying to get blue cards who were unsuccessful. Pablo was.
Yeah. Right. And one of the funny things about that is like everyone was like, he would be the last person I would expect to be the first, person to be carded. Now fast forward, right, and he's flipping off a fan, and he gets fined, and he's got to apologize or whatever.
Did he apologize?
Did he?
I haven't seen it. Well, actually, he might have. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't want to say he did. I guess I assumed he did, but more information has come to light where people who were there
saying bad things, maybe.
Said, it was like pretty offensive.
Yeah.
Offensive stuff.
Do you think anybody what percentage of people watching pickleball give a shit that Pablo flips somebody off? Like who cares? I mean, like negatively, like what percentage of people are like, wow, I'm never watching pickleball again because of that young man's actions. Like, I just wonder, like, is it, you're pissing off 10% of people are like, well, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
The rest of us are like, who cares?
Yeah.
You never flip somebody off? I flipped off 3 people on my 5-minute walk over here.
But yes, all right. So I guess
we had a fan get kicked out too. I think.
Yeah,
we had a fan get kicked out in Daytona.
He was the guy who was jawing at Pablo.
I think so. Yeah.
He was like, I said, we have a video of it. He looks pretty hammered.
We kicked out a guy in Mesa for sure. The guy wearing the clown get up, and then I don't know if it was the same guy or not.
What was he doing?
Just I think drunk and
saying clown suit.
Yeah, he was wearing like a rainbow colored.
He was like a Fives fan.
Maybe, I don't know.
The clowns, the Fives, the clowns.
But he was drunk, and so he got escorted out, and then the guy in Daytona got escorted out too. So got an orange card.
Got it.
Oh, all right, nice. Orange carded some fans.
Yeah,
that's progress. The referee should just go up and summon them like they do in soccer. Boom, orange card. I think that should be implemented. Like you gotta tell Pablo to come up to Courtney, and she presents him with the card.
The referee did present Pablo with the card.
Yeah, you gotta tell him to come here. Like, get over here.
Yeah. Who's in charge?
Yeah.
So who gets the first orange
Gotta be
card?
the boss. No, I guess it's the least smooth segue of all time, I think. But recently on Tyson's podcast, this caused a lot of conversation. Tyson McGuffin, but he was talking about how he was playing a doubles match in Newport, and he took serious offense to a player on the other end. I believe you were involved in this match, Zane, countering one of his speed ups, and in that counter saying never. And apparently that was crossing the line, right? Zane, can we get like your story, your experience, and do you have some additional information on what happened there?
So yeah, I was present in that. I more or less sort of pretended like I didn't hear DJ yell at the top of his lungs. Never. I was like, oh, he did really. It was a point, just. I think boys will be boys, and here's the thing: like, I generally think that the rowdiness and loudness should be encouraged. Like, yes, it's pickleball, and Tyson has a point because it's not something that is like generally accepted right now.
Yeah.
It's something that is different right now. I would vote for we should change this to be more like basketball, baseball, soccer. any other sport, basically, other than tennis, where people are chatting, people are talking. The crowd is yelling in the middle of games. You even have the announcer like saying defense and stuff like that, right? Like, I think that this should be more like other U.S. sports where the fans and whatnot are going nuts the whole time. And the only reason that something like that is distracting at all is when it comes infrequently. Right. You have people shooting free throws in college basketball games, and there's people back there like waving balloons, milking cows at Badger games, like that type of stuff. Like, that's the people deal with it, right? But if it was completely silent, like everybody needs to be quiet, and one person yells out, like, I don't know, then that's more distracting. So I think talk should be.
Should we create like a Phoenix Open of pickleball?
100%.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's what MLP should be. Mm-hmm. Why not?
Yeah.
How do you create Phoenix Open, and does MLP want to be the Phoenix Open of pickleball, and who is going to be the streaker?
That's funny. I mean, I think, we had in Daytona, there were the fives and hustlers match was just craziness, mayhem. And, we had some complaints from players and other people that we needed to tone it down. So we created the blue card and orange card rules, but we also at the same time, literally in the email that I sent out to both the players and the refs is, I want the finger wagging. I want Annalie bumping her chest. I want Hayden doing this. Like, I want, stare downs. Like, we want that. And we encourage that. So I hope that the rules that we made in Mesa or in Daytona didn't discourage players from acting, just from that energy and that excitement. We want that. Do we want at this point to go straight to Phoenix Open craziness? I don't know. I think it probably needs to be a transition. Yeah. I don't know. I'd be interested to see, like, across the board surveying the players what they think.
It's tough when you survey the players because we don't like change for the most part. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like, we're change averse for the most part, but we also have never competed in the contrary. Right. We've never competed in a Phoenix Open style of DLR. Yeah. We've been in tennis and pickleball for our whole careers. This would be different. Yeah.
I think having one tournament where you just like say, this is going to be it. Like, get ready. Like, I mean, that when you get to the Phoenix Open, and it's probably, I've never been there, but I'm sure it's probably on more other holes as opposed to just 16. But 16 is a whole other level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you've even got an opportunity to be like the Vince McMahon of pickleball. You go get in the storylines and wreak havoc.
I think Steve relishes that role.
No, Steve's too. He's too nice. I think you got the beard going. Yeah. You got the long hair. You got an opportunity here. I think you could really
stir some stuff up.
Yeah. But I think pickleball generally would do well to embrace that. I mean, we've said it a million times. I think back to, I think it was either Mesa or Daytona. It's this cut. I don't know who made it, but it was on social of Hayden being like, here's the thing. I don't lose to old guys. I just don't. Right. And it's like that Metro Boomin music. And like, that was honestly the first, I guess, I don't know what you call that, but like hot, like edit, right? The first edit where I was like, oh, pickleball looks badass. Right. And it's pretty difficult. I don't think anybody's going to argue this, especially to outsiders. It's pretty difficult right now to make pickleball look not goofy in many ways, right? But this is one of those ways you can sort of shed that reputation and emerge as something different, something unique, something that is cool, and something that people want to watch. Right. So to curtail all that, the antics, the chirpiness, I think it's to the detriment of what you guys are trying to build right now. I'm sure you guys are having those conversations.
I don't disagree with anything you just said.
Yeah.
And I think also the closeness of the fact that you're only 14 feet away, like, adds to that. I would love for it to continue to progress to that level, personally.
Even just another example recently was this Dylan Brooks thing, right? This NBA player who's kind of like this no-name guy on the Grizzlies, chirping at LeBron, and it dominated the headlines. It got me. I used to be a big basketball fan. I'm not as much anymore, but it got me to tune back in for those games. I was like, I got to see this. I got to see this guy go head to head with LeBron now. And now they're John before the game, and it just creates this compelling storyline, and it brings people from outside in.
Right.
And I think we just need more of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And this relates back to something we talked about earlier, like the trying to up the broadcast and production. And that's something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. And we want to begin to experiment with, like, whether it's, we mic'd the players in the very first MLP, and like trying to do that more, and also just experiment with different camera angles to make it not tennis. Right now, the standard is you show the baseline and then maybe switches to the kitchen, like get away from, like, I would love it if we got away from that baseline shot. If we just removed that from pickleball,
right?
Ever figured out the technology to get it more intimate and show the speed and the dynamic, also like even adding stuff like AI on top, like to show spin and speed and things like that. Like,
that's the tough part is, like, you do not judge how fast the ball is coming from that above the court angle. And that's what makes people watch in person like, wow, this is sick. Yeah. People watch on TV and this is slow. It's the same issue to a certain extent with tennis. I always loved watching the floor camera from tennis at Grand Slams. They would show that maybe 1 or 2 points per set. And like, that's what I want to see. Yeah. That's how you're showing this ball coming at me this fast. And that's what this guy on the court is out there dealing with. Yeah. It's just a lot tougher where in pickleball, right, where you have 2 people covering this court, and if you're on a low angle behind them, maybe you can see the ball coming really quick, but the bodies obstruct the ball a little bit too much.
40 feet away or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pretty far behind.
Whatever. Yeah. Because it's got to be 10 feet behind the court, and you've got 22 feet to get there. So it's, What I would like to see is somebody put this into terms of baseball, right? Like when you are 14 feet away from somebody and they hit an overhead at you, how does that compare to hitting a fastball? Yeah, that's interesting.
Right. And I think that we have the data to figure that out. Like, how fast is this ball leaving the paddle? Mm-hmm. Like we talk about, badminton is something crazy. Like it's leaving your racket. The highest smash is at 200 plus miles per hour, obviously slowing down very quickly. But what is the reaction time of a pickleball player, and how does that compare to the decision-making process of hitting a fastball?
Yeah, I would think
there's certain times where this is coming at you faster than a major league fastball,
especially within a 14-foot range. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Never.
Never. You got to hit it faster than that. If somebody has time to say never.
I guess the reason I bring it up is because to me it just was surprising that of all things, that was the one event that he isolated. Something about that really frustrated him to the point where he was going to actually take a moment to talk about it. And then even on his most recent episode, he went as far as to then go hit that clip of him talking about it and put it back in again. Right. So he's not like stepping away from his opinion on that.
It's interesting because he's not like the traditional pickleball guy either. Yeah. Like normally he's the guy that's kind of out there and pushing the limits with stuff, whether, with his look, his deal, his on court stuff. Like normally he's all for that type of stuff, but not now. Right. It is interesting.
Something about that did upset him. Yeah. I mean, I can see the point of like not doing it in the middle of the point. Like
I don't think he's wrong in that, right?
Yeah. Because like, what happens if you say never and then he counters and like hits you back in the chest with the ball?
Well, then you run that risk. Yeah.
You look like a real really idiot. Silly, you look real dumb if somebody gets you after that.
Yeah.
Yikes. That was me and James were just kind of hanging out while that happened.
You were just sitting courtside watching?
No, we were just hanging out on the court while that whole deal went down.
Uh-huh.
It was entertaining.
Yeah. Well, but so after that happened, was there a conversation after that moment, or was it like sort of this thing that you guys didn't even think twice about, and then later it came up on a podcast? Or in that moment, was there then like further conversation and interactions between DJ and Tyson, or was there a larger conversation around how that was like inappropriate in that moment?
I think Tyson said something to DJ. I don't think DJ said anything back after that. And then Tyson said one or two things to me afterwards. Not pissed at me or anything. But I didn't think it was going to get to social media.
Right. Yeah.
Did the referee say anything?
I don't know. I
Should
during
the referee say anything in that moment?
I mean, again,
If it were
per the
Major League
rules, you could
Pickleball?
say like you could conceivably say it was a distraction because it was in the middle of the point, especially like something fast like that.
Yeah.
So if a referee doesn't see something, they go like this, right?
You bring this
That's
up
the protocol?
every episode.
I've seen them do this. I
know that when they do the like line, if there's like the referee over there and you're like, did you see the line call, right? And
they go like this.
Okay.
So if they didn't hear anything,
They go.
do they go like this? Sorry. Oh boy. Yeah, I get a kick out of that.
All right, let's and I don't know if this is going to be a thing or not. But I mean, so you said there were a number of players whose paddles came back illegal. You kept it.
Technically, it wasn't illegal at that point because we hadn't determined like what that guideline was, right? We were just collecting data. Then what we did was gathered all the data, put it on a bell curve, determined what the average deflection force was, and then said retroactively or post that, we looked at the bell curve, saw what, how things were distributed, and said, going forward, the likely guideline that we're going to do is 6 paddles would likely fail in the future. And we may adjust those guidelines after we do more dynamic testing also. And to be clear, so I think the average deflection force was 69 on the, and again, that's like,
Was that on purpose?
it was not. I was waiting for that to come. Zane was like,
I think I saw it from James's tweet, and I was like, "Man, we are on the same same level."
Looked at the bell curve and then saw like, I think it was like, what do we think is a reasonable distance from that average that we think will be what would fail in the future. And again, we may go back to dynamic testing and start to realize, okay, the ball speed correlated to that average deflection force might be like a 55 might fail or a 60 or something we don't know. And then that could be, 10 paddles or 12 or 15. Again, you can, as you see the bell curve, there's like a couple of them down here and the big distribution is in the bell. So yeah, like we didn't say like beforehand, this is illegal compared to the, based on the testing that we did.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Information gathering.
Yeah.
I appreciated that like it was all laid out there. Are you like, so there's probably plenty of people commenting on social media and whatnot, like giving ideas, feedback, whatever. And I think that's probably a good thing, right? To sort of crowdsource some stuff. There's going to be a ton of crap that you throw out, maybe 95%. But like when you have more eyes on this stuff and on this process, like there's probably some diamonds in the rough of good commentary with this data out there available. Have you gotten anything from outside sources saying like, hey, like all this was great, we love it? Have you thought about this? Or
I don't think so. Nothing that I can think of off the top of my head
besides
right now.
that you all sit in a room and watch this podcast as a team and dissect everything that's said. Yeah. Agents of change, as we know, Zane. Are there any people out there like on Twitter, right? And honestly, right now, there's only a handful of voices that I think are consistent and worth paying attention to. I think it's slowly growing. Not as much as
I think it's growing quickly in a very short period of time. It was like dead for the majority of time. And I think like in the last, I would say even 3 to 6 months, it seems like exponentially increasing. And you've got more people, more pros like James and Anna and Zane,
popping off.
The trolls, Heisei and Odoth, and like more people are using that as an And I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of pros making Twitters. I'll get like I got a follow from
Leia and
and I'm like, oh, they weren't on Twitter before. Clearly, they're seeing enough happening here that people are going to Twitter to get in on the conversation. I mean, if you look at most other sports, the conversation does happen on Twitter. Right. I mean, that's the primary medium. Yeah. In pickleball, it's been lacking.
Facebook. The Facebook.
Yeah, right. It's Facebook. And then eventually, like when I always say this, like when I first started writing the Dink newsletter, literally the only place to go get commentary or information was Pickleball Forum. Yeah. Right. There were no other Instagram accounts. I don't think there was an Instagram account with over like even like the tours. I mean, they weren't over like 1,500 followers, right? Now there's a bunch that are over 10,000 followers. So we sort of like, we moved over to Instagram. Yeah. And it seemed like that was sort of the primary place for a while. And now it seems like most of the conversation and where I'm paying most attention to sort of understand the narratives and the commentary and the themes is Twitter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just the nature of the platform, right? Like Instagram is obviously image and video heavy. So it's content and telling stories that way. But like the conversation and the dialogue is like is Twitter. That's like what it was made for. And yeah, it's interesting to see now the debates and dialogue and back and forth now, as opposed to just somebody making a post and it just sits there and nobody talks about it. There's
one thing I thought was interesting about the NBA is it's in their contracts that they have to spend a certain amount of hours with the media. They have to spend time with the media after practices, after games. They get fined if they don't. It's difficult in pickleball because there aren't many like media outlets, right? So it's like, are you going to really force Leia to come and like hang out with us, for example? Like, no, and then what are you going to do with the rest of the players? Yeah. So like, is there any sort of approach you could take that might create the same result? Like maybe they have to publish, like it's in their contract, they have to publish or put out a certain amount of social media or commentary or, you know, you got to go on a podcast, you know, once every 3 months or something like that. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but
it'd be interesting to do like some MLP pressers, like actually talking about the match.
Like come off the court and just go to the desk and answer questions.
Yeah,
and have a bunch of have Odoth and Heyshay and
Odoth,
and me,
they're just writing in there
and Maurice the Grease, and we're just like asking them questions and they gotta answer.
Yeah. It's all getting filmed to the point where it's no longer like you're just gonna get asked the softball questions from your buddies. Yeah, like you need somebody there that just does not give a shit.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and like that's going to just they're there to try and get an interesting story. They don't care about you. As much as that sucks for somebody like me who's playing, I want somebody on the other side who's going to be an asshole and ask me like hard questions that I don't want to answer. Yeah. And you guys want that too. Right. But the players don't. But also like we kind of need to understand that, you know, the rising tide brings up all ships. Right. Yeah. Right. So that's eventually the media and everything is where the reason why pro athletes get their money.
Yeah. So it's part of the job. Yeah. And ours tends to be event focused at this point. You know, like we ask them to do a media day. Like we have Joe and his team go on another court and we have them shoot videos and sort of make that a requirement, but we don't tend to do a whole bunch other, you know, they're not other requirements like doing a press conference or other posts or things like that right now, but everything is around the event.
Right. I wonder if you could have one of those guys like there's a couple. I mean, Twitter. You're finding, or at least I'm finding, a bunch of these people who are very interested in putting out interesting commentary, like the Pickle Fanatics and Josh Gartman. Get him a courtside media access or something so he can hear what's being said on the court. Like, can you imagine if that Josh guy was at, let's say, the Sarah Ansbury versus Lacey and Lina match, and he could ask hard questions about the whole situation.
Right. And you get them in the moment, right?
You get them in the moment.
Like you get Pablo coming off the court right after he flips off the crowd. Now, is it good to have them all emotional and in that moment? Probably in some ways, yes. In other ways, no.
Not for Pablo.
Not for Pablo, but it's good content, yeah.
Yeah. And eventually, you know, people get media trained and they'll understand. But even in that environment, they'll say, you know what? Every once in a while, there'll be a moment where they say, I don't care. I do want to vocalize this right now because this needs to be addressed. My opinion needs to be heard, right? I don't know how to facilitate that, but gives us more stuff to talk about.
You have a bunch of nameless employees that I don't know. You could just send them all.
He's got a whole squad. He has more employees than I do.
Yeah, no, I mean, we had 4 people at Major League Pickleball Daytona. And they could have participated in a media day. They could have gone up there and asked questions if there were players on the mic or, if that opportunity were available, I think we could have made it happen.
It's hard right now in the event because you're just like recycling match after match after match. Like, but I guess, I mean, you could, after you walk off, we could probably make something like that work. But, if we eventually go to like a home and away type thing where you're just have like 1 match a week or whatever. And, that could definitely be a thing, or probably will be a thing.
Assuming that's the ultimate vision for MLP.
Yeah.
And the reason why we're the Frisco clean cause
getting the
for now
tribal aspect, I guess, if you say, of having geographic ties and, something about just people identifying with a team, especially somewhere they're from. Like, I'm from here, Texas Longhorn is like, I don't watch NFL, but I will watch every single Texas Longhorn game, basketball, football. We'll follow Scheffler playing golf. Like, I am a Longhorn. And so we wanted to tie into that geographic affiliation. And that's why it's Frisco Clean Cause, or, New York Hustlers, Brooklyn Aces, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I really look forward to that part of things when you can have regular season matches going on in New York and California at the same time. Like, I think it obviously makes it a lot more difficult to bring the entire Major League Pickleball team to each of these. It would be basically impossible.
Yeah.
But like maybe incentivizing these teams to run their own deal. Yeah. For the most part.
It's something that we're discussing regularly and trying to figure out how to make it happen as soon as possible. Yeah.
Love it. So heading back to Tyson, did Tyson address his paddle failing in his podcast at all? Or that's
I
kind of
didn't
like,
listen to that part. I don't know.
I don't know if he's talked about it. It's interesting because I haven't seen the anything from PPA about the Red Rock situation, where we know that 2 paddles were tested or sent off for testing, but we do already have information on the Newport one. Mm-hmm. I'm curious whether Tyson has addressed it, but I would guess that he hasn't. Otherwise, we would have maybe seen something about it.
I haven't seen any comments. Was it Hook? I haven't seen anything like whether it was confirmed one way or the other.
Yeah, so we know that Salome made a statement that hers had passed, and Tyson hasn't said anything, but somehow or another it's gotten out there that his failed, or not gotten out there. That's the speculation, maybe, or whatever. But we don't know. There's only room for speculation at this point.
Maybe I want to say he did address it. I don't know if he did, but I think the root of the speculation was it came from Anna Bright and Dylan. They sort of like offhand mentioned that they knew that it had failed or something. But prior to that, was there speculation that he was playing with an illegal? Like, why is this even a conversation? Like, why was this even?
Travis made a social media post.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
right.
That he challenged the paddle and thought it was delaminated at that.
Right.
Yeah. Shit, I just realized we can't help ourselves but talk about paddles at this point.
No.
Maybe it's just me.
Well, I mean, but that's going back to what we were saying. It's the problem is like the lack of things to talk about because of the lack of media, because of the lack of the way the sport is broadcasted. We need to create these narratives because now we have a bunch of great podcasts that are getting thousands of views and they all bring attention to this sport, right? They get people involved.
I'm ready for some good pickleball conspiracy theories. You got any? Any good pickleball conspiracy theories?
I think the best conspiracy theory was that, certain batches were made differently and the paddle manufacturers knew it, right? The new one is the paddle juicer, but apparently it's not as unknown as I thought it was, or it's sort of like an understanding that there are certain people you can send your paddle to, and they'll soup it up. They'll put on some aftermarket parts,
Make it spicy.
yeah, right.
Spicy paddles.
Yeah, I mean, so once you go and you establish these baselines for how paddles need to be and the guidelines that manufacturers need to abide by, and then you're able to create individual profiles or let's say footprints for these different manufacturers and what their paddles normally come out to be. And then a player playing with one of those paddles is always or consistently sort of outside of those norms. Then you can start to say, hey, like, what are you doing to your paddle to make it so different? And then the onus is off the manufacturer to a degree and more on the individual player.
Some of that, though, is like, it is normal wear and tear. Like, that's just, it just happens. Like, right. I had it happen to my paddle. I had a paddle for 6 weeks, and I play 2 times a week, maybe 3 times a week. And Tuesday night, it was okay. Wednesday morning, it was not okay. And I just started noticing, like, I hit a reset, and it was like, it just went flying. And I'm like,
this has happened to everyone but me. My paddles just, they go the opposite way. It's like they're just dead, and I can't even hit a ball.
All right, Brooks, I'm going to turn on post notifications for you, and I am going to await your apology video for playing with a delaminated paddle on whatever Wednesday that was.
Yeah, Vinny Brasha was the recipient of my overhead.
Oh boy. Benny Brasha?
Vinny.
Mary
and Maggie's dad.
Yeah. We're sorry, Vinny.
Yeah. But like I am not good enough to control it, so like I immediately said I'm done with send me another paddle.
Yeah. Well, I think we got ripped in the YouTube comments because when we were talking about the paddle juicer on the last episode, my response was like, "Get me this guy! Like, I want one of these delaminated paddles or one of these." And they were like, "Oh my god! Like, if I were playing with you, you know, every game you ever play would have an asterisk." I'm like, I don't care. It's, like, it's rec play. Give me the juiced paddle. Like, I'm trying. I can take it. I'll take any advantage I can get.
Well, I'm going to turn the tables a little bit and ask a question to both of you. Okay, we know that we can set up testing for professionals, right? We have the money and the resources to set up a vice and, you know, a lab on site. Like, how do you police this at the amateur level?
It really just becomes like an integrity thing. It's like you hold each other accountable, and everyone's. It's going to be obvious. I mean, any pro player who's played against a delaminated paddle says they can identify it pretty much immediately. I think it'll become the case. I mean, that's just bad podcasting. My phone going off right now. It'll become the case.
Make sure to like and subscribe for phones.
Where even amateurs can recognize that. But if you think about golf, I mean, you know,
people
there's
are
all
using
sorts
juiced
of
up spicy golf clubs.
There's all sorts of stuff you can buy where, you know, it's like frowned upon, and but people do it anyway. It's like
cheating is cheating at the amateur level, regardless of the way that you're cheating, right? Regardless of whether it's bad line calls, whether it's fudging your scorecard in golf, whether it's using illegal clubs, paddles, whatever. Cheating is just cheating. You're just a bad person if you cheat especially you, Thomas. if you cheat at the but also there's a difference between like cheating in an actual tournament where you're being competitive as an amateur player and playing with your friends in rec play. Like, it's probably a good training tool for me if the people that I practice against use a delaminated paddle. I don't care in practice, right? It's going to be good for me because everything else is going to look slow in comparison. So how do you police it? Like,
you can't. Is the answer?
You don't. I think that people will sort of self-police. If you're sick of playing against somebody that just goes for, let's say, bag, like hitting people all the time, like you probably just like remove yourself from that deal.
Somebody's stop inviting him. He stops being the fourth.
Right. Yeah,
exactly.
Find a different fourth.
Like, if you play with somebody that's cheating all the time in rec play, like,
or like somebody you play golf, inviting you play golf with who's like kicking the ball out of the rough, like you, you stop inviting them.
Back, absolutely. But in golf, that's way more rampant.
Yeah,
like
I had
just shifting the ball.
I had a bogey.
Right.
You had 2 balls out of the woods.
Yeah, even even you and I were talking right before Zane got here about when Tyson Apostle and I played in Vegas, and
San Clemente.
Oh, okay. Well, this happened in Vegas, I think.
Okay.
I think it was Vegas where Tyson and I were playing in this match, and this kid was just hitting these like wicked chainsaw serves. At the time, it wasn't illegal yet.
R.I.P.
But I looked across the net and I was like, dude, you're ruining this experience. Like, this is just, I know what you're doing is illegal, but like, I know, I always was like, dude, this sucks. Like, you know, it's because if you're not ready for it, some of those chainsaw serves, I mean, literally, you would make a move one way thinking it has a ton of spin. It does have a ton of spin, but in the opposite direction. So it passes you in a way that is like...
you're just bad. You're just... I've never seen it. I still have heated. I've never seen a chainsaw that you can't read.
Yeah, no.
Never once.
I played in a rally scoring match against somebody that had that, and we lost 21-4.
Oof.
Yeah.
And I think like
You're bad
17
too.
definitely 17 of those were like, I just didn't, it was me and my partner both like just didn't ever hit a return back, like whiffed them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I get at like the highest level using everything at your disposal because you have to compete against the best in the world. But at the amateur level, it's like, dude, come on. Like,
but I would
this
also,
isn't fun.
Yeah. I would also argue that if you can do that skill alone, it doesn't matter how bad you are at the rest of the game. If that is your only skill, that immediately probably makes you like a 5-5 or a 6-0 level player. Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't matter how bad you are. Like if you're the level of player that's the only person that can return that or read it or whatever, like that alone makes you. It's like a tennis player that has a big serve. Like that's all you need. Not all you need. Obviously, they have to have some level of skill, but
at certain skill levels, it can be all you need, more or less. Yeah.
Like at 4-5, if you have a 6-0 level serve, like you're gonna kill everybody. It doesn't matter how bad you are at the rest of the game or how good you are. Yeah.
So is the chainsaw coming back at MLP?
No.
It is at the waste management at Major League Pickleball Waste Management.
At our Wild West or at the Dinks Wild West tournament that I continue to talk about, and we've made zero plans.
Well, I'm doing a little work on some conversations, but we've had a lot of conversations that graduate to nothing. So we'll see what happens.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
No planning whatsoever so far, but it will happen.
What?
Dinks Wild West Zane Rules Pickleball Tournament.
At Dreamland?
Yeah.
At Dreamland, let's do it.
I was watching
we just secured a venue, guys. We just secured a venue.
No, we are making progress. This is progress right here. I was watching one of our podcasts back, and we were talking about the Wild West tournament, and you were throwing out a bunch of rules. You were like, chainsaw, it's legal. You said a couple of other things, and then like you stopped, and I was like, yeah, and 2 points for body bag, and you just go, nah.
It's too hard to define a body bag.
Anything that hits you?
Yeah, what do you mean?
But getting grazed in the foot is not the same as getting murdered by Brandon French.
It's got to be like waist up or something like that.
Knee up or something like that.
You have a panel of judges on the side, and they each hold up their score for how good the body bag is.
2 points for a lob.
Okay, one serious question. Rules question.
Okay.
The Saslo Super Dream Breaker. My buddy Joe Saslo from Pro XR, they also work with Chicago Slice.
Owner. Yeah.
You stagger the players in the Dream Breaker. So if I'm the whatever it is, the home team,
right?
I'm putting out my first person. They play 2 points. And then for the rest of the match, everybody plays 4. Just like a tennis tiebreaker, the first serve you serve once, and then it's 2-2-2-2-2.
Yeah.
What this does is it guarantees that each player will have 2 different matchups, and it also guarantees that there will be at least one male-female matchup.
I like that. I like that idea. Was it you that texted me this idea?
I think it was Joe. I mean, I think I might have talked to you about it, but
yeah, somebody brought it up to me like in the last month or so. I like it. I would consider doing something like that.
Where's the experimentation? Where's the R&D for MLP? Is it the you're the
I mean, Steve, myself. Yeah,
you can implement some of this in the minor league pickleball and see how it plays out.
We could definitely. I mean, that's what we're testing the VAR stuff at minor league pickleball. I think we could. It's fun to do different events where you could say like maybe there is the. Again, I know a lot of people hate like the shot clock or 2 points for lob winner or whatever. Like there's lots of fun things that we can do. But I think for Major League Pickleball specifically, I would be open to that type of dream breaker.
I think it'd be sick.
I think we're also considering the coin flip that you can choose men's or women's doubles first.
I like that. Adding in another element. If you have a very good men's team, not as good women's team, or vice versa, could you potentially pick mixed first?
No. Because because
it would go, I guess, mixed, men's, women's, men's.
Because I think that removes one element of it. That removes another element of. Well, I guess you could say like the second team, you still get to choose or be the reacting team. I don't know. I have to think about that one a little more, but
it just slightly changes dynamics going into the second match. I would assume you would want to put what you perceive to be your best matchup out first. To have some momentum, put a little pressure on the other team. I think any area there is for strategy, you might as well use it.
As you know, Steve loves to optimize for chaos and extra decisions and strategy. Yeah,
we like chaos.
Yeah.
Also, one other question, something we've talked about on the pod as well, is the side switching. Any thoughts on switching sides every X amount of points as opposed to only at a switch? Or only at a halfway?
Yeah, we've debated that a little bit, or I think we've also debated instead of, so like in game one, I think you would switch at the end of game one when you switch ends at 11, right? At the end of game one, you start game two in the same place as opposed to going back, starting every match.
Okay.
I think that's something that we're more likely in debating implementing.
Yeah, I think it's for all 4 matches to end on one side. Like, It hasn't happened yet where there's been such a considerable wind that makes it impossible to win from one side, but it will.
Yeah. Yeah. This one, I think if you do it that way, you don't always end up on the same side, or it's like Steve can do the math in his head, and we did this in a competition committee meeting, but yeah, like I think that's something that we're considering.
Gotcha. Cool. Tommy, what else you got?
What do you got?
I think that's all we got. Brooks, anything else that you wanted to bring up, mention, discuss? I mean, you're doing the pod tour, so
this is my last one scheduled. So, tune into Major League Pickleball. Minor League Pickleball, they're beginning to have events. Like if nobody has ever played in a Minor League Pickleball event, I'm biased, but to me, it's the most fun thing ever. And essentially what that is playing Major League Pickleball style with your friends. So you have 2 men and 2 women on a team, and you play tournaments, and you get to play, I think in the format that they're going with, you get to play 5 team matches in one day. So, instead of going Owen barbecue, you get to play, but it's 5 team matches. So you're there cheering on your friends for half of those games, but you whether it's me playing, I get to play 5 men's games to 15 or 21 and 5 mixed games to 15 or 21. And then whatever Dream Breakers, if you do that, that's just incredibly fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm looking at the schedule. It looks like you have one in SoCal on 13th of May. You have another one in Orange County, the 20th of May. One at the Pickler.
Yeah, I'll be at the one at the Pickler. That's where we're going to test out the VAR system, the video replay system with higher speed cameras. And then, June 15th through the 18th is the 3rd event of this first season in San Clemente. And then that Monday is what we're calling the super finals. So the top 2 teams based on points in Challenger and the top 2 teams in points based on Premier are going to play a match on that Monday in San Clemente for the super finals. And then that will be the champion of season 1. And what else?
What do we have to do to get Team Clean in there?
I think you might be mathematically at this point.
Yikes. Well, I'm looking forward to the MLP Team Owners Tournament.
Oh yeah,
on Monday.
Yeah. Are you going to be a coach? Are you a
team
coach?
owners? Yeah, I've named my team the Grifters.
Nice.
I figure how can I take a shot at these billionaires and wealthy people? Yes, I'm going to be drafting a team.
I think.
Are you draft eligible?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Oh man, are you ready to be the Sam Querrey of this event? You're going first overall, Brooksy.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
On that note, any more big ownership announcements we should be waiting for? I mean, Dude Perfect was the last one.
Yeah, I think. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil the surprise, but I think one of the teams is going to announce some people added here soon. Yeah, I don't want to say anymore because I don't want to spoil it. But because if I say something, it'll immediately let you know who it is. So I can't think of a clever way to disguise that at this point. Right. And then the season 2 draft is going to be likely going to be in New York City in July. Working out the final dates of that, but probably around July 11th or 12th. We'll be sending out details about that soon. So just so everybody knows, again, we had 2 seasons, 3 events in each season. So we're about to do the 3rd event, San Clemente. We'll have a mid-season draft where all of the teams in Challenger switch to Premier for the second part of the year. In season 2, vice versa, all the teams in Premier switch. They flip-flop. So Team Clean will go from Premier to Challenger, and all of those teams switch. So that will be fun content, and I think people hopefully get Twitter riled up about who gets drafted where. Obviously there's already discussion happening, like who should be the what players in Challenger are the most likely to get to Premier, or who in Premier is likely to not get picked up again.
Got it.
And then shuffle draft, last thing, the Challenger shuffle draft for San Clemente is this Thursday. So the teams will be making those picks on Thursday, and I think we'll try and live tweet those out, and then do the whole list published on Friday.
Cool.
Nice.
Okay.
Sweet.
Humans who watch this podcast, put the notifications on. That way you can get notified when we're premiering an episode, because during the premiere, we go in there and we chat with you. Zane doesn't.
I don't. I won't.
And he probably never will.
No, I pop on there to leave some comments sometimes. Not during the live stuff usually, but every now and then.
But the live one, I mean, we had one episode where there was over 700 people watching live and all chatting and stuff, and that was really cool. So if you like this pod and you want to get in on the action, get notified for the premieres and we're all chatting, I think you got to hit like the little bell or something like that. But subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment. Let Brooks know how awesome his beard is and to never shave it. And I think that's all we got. That's PicklePod. Thanks for coming on, Brooks.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's good. Always good to see you guys.
I'm not gonna lie,